When we think of Joan of Arc, the image that often comes to mind is that of a fearless young woman charging into battle, sword raised high, leading her troops with unwavering courage. But the reality of her story is even more astonishing than the legends suggest. Instead of a sword, Joan carried a banner, a vibrant symbol of her faith and the divine mission she believed she was chosen for. This banner became her most powerful weapon, representing hope and unity for her people. Her mere presence on the battlefield was enough to inspire hope in a weary and defeated army. She didn't need to fight with violence. Her conviction and belief in her cause were enough to rally the hearts of soldiers who had nearly given up. Joan was more than just a warrior, she was a spiritual guide, a beacon of light in a time of darkness, and a living symbol of faith for an entire nation. France, torn apart by the devastation of the 100 Years' War, was desperate for a miracle. Villages were destroyed, families separated, and hope was fading fast. Out of this despair rose Joan, a teenage peasant girl from a small village. Against all odds, she became the miracle her country needed. Her unwavering faith and courage ignited a spark that spread across France, giving people a reason to believe again. Despite being unable to read or write, Joan spoke with a confidence and clarity that astonished even the most powerful men of her time. She stood before kings and generals, unafraid, and convinced them to listen. How did a simple village girl with no formal education or noble birth manage to change the course of a war that had raged for decades? Her journey is a testament to the extraordinary power of belief and determination. Joan's story is powerful because it is rooted in reality. She was not a myth or a legend, but a real person whose faith and determination left an indelible mark on history. She wasn't born into power or privilege. She earned the respect of soldiers and nobles alike through her unwavering conviction and her willingness to stand up for what she believed was right. Joan's incredible journey began not on a battlefield, but in the quiet solitude of a village garden, where she first heard the call that would change her life and the fate of her country forever. Her legend is not just about battles and victories, but about the courage to follow one's calling, even when the world doubts you. Joan reminds us that true strength often comes from within, from the quiet conviction to do what is right, no matter the cost. The story of Joan of Arc is filled with unexpected truths and remarkable moments that continue to inspire us centuries later. And it all begins with a girl, a banner, and an unshakable belief that she could make a difference in the world. Joan was born in Domremy, a small French village, around 1412. She grew up helping her family, learning prayers and stories from her mother. The 100 Years' War cast a shadow over her childhood. Raids and fear were constant. France was divided, its king uncrowned, and its people desperate. Joan saw her country's suffering firsthand. For her, the war was a spiritual crisis as much as a political one. She prayed for France's salvation, believing her homeland was being punished. Joan was neither noble nor trained for war, just a girl with unwavering faith. Her belief in victory set her apart from the despairing French. She claimed her conviction came from heaven itself. According to Joan, saints delivered her a divine command. This message would soon propel her from obscurity to the heart of history. In a world of chaos, Joan found her purpose. She would become the hope her country needed. Her journey was about to begin, and it all started with a voice. At 13, Joan experienced something extraordinary in her father's garden. A bright, shimmering light, and a voice that seemed to come from beyond the world she knew. The air was still, the morning sun just beginning to warm the earth, when the silence was broken by this gentle presence. The voice, gentle and kind, urged her to be good, to live with virtue, and to go to church faithfully. It spoke with a warmth that filled her with both awe and comfort, as if she was being watched over by something divine. Over time, the voices revealed themselves as Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. Holy figures she had only heard about in stories and seen in the stained glass of her village church. They became her constant guides, offering comfort, wisdom, and direction. In moments of doubt or fear, their presence was a steady light, reminding her she was never truly alone. Their message soon changed. Joan was chosen for a purpose far greater than she could have imagined. She was to save France, a nation torn by war and despair. She was to help the Dauphin Charles reclaim his rightful throne, to restore hope to a people who had nearly lost it. And she was to lead him to Reims for his coronation, so that he could be crowned king in the eyes of God and all of France. The task was monumental for a teenage peasant girl, someone with no power, no army, and no voice in the world of men. Joan kept her visions secret, fearing disbelief, ridicule, and even threats from her own family. The weight of her calling was heavy, and the risk of being misunderstood was real, but the voices persisted, urging her to act without fear, to trust in their guidance, and to believe in her own strength. Gradually, Joan's fear turned to resolve. She began to see herself not just as a peasant girl, but as someone chosen for a sacred mission. She accepted her mission, transforming from a humble farmer's daughter to the Maid of Orleans, a symbol of hope and courage for her people. Her journey would challenge everything, her faith, her courage, and the fate of a nation. She would face battlefields, doubt, and the expectations of a world unready for her. Joan's private visions would soon become a public crusade, inspiring villagers, soldiers, and even nobles to rally behind her cause. She was ready to change history. The voices had spoken and their message echoed in her heart. Joan was prepared to answer no matter the cost, and to step boldly into the destiny that awaited her. At just 16 years old, Joan of Arc set out from her small village, determined to reach Vaucouleurs. Her goal was clear: to seek an escort to the Dauphin, Charles, the heir to the French throne. The journey was long and uncertain, but Joan's resolve was unwavering, fueled by a sense of divine purpose that set her apart from those around her. Her first attempt ended in disappointment. She was dismissed by the local commander and sent home, her pleas ignored, and her hopes momentarily dashed. But Joan was not one to give up easily. Undeterred by rejection, she returned to Vaucouleurs a year later, her conviction only growing stronger with time. She spoke with even greater passion, insisting that her mission was ordained by God. Joan boldly predicted a French defeat at Orléans, a prophecy that soon came true. When the news of the loss spread, people began to take her words seriously, and whispers of her visions traveled quickly. Even the skeptical commander, Robert de Baudricourt, who had once laughed at her, was now convinced enough to offer his support. For her safety, Joan cut her hair short and dressed in men's clothing, disguising herself for the perilous journey ahead. She joined a small group of loyal companions, traveling by night and avoiding enemy patrols as they crossed dangerous, war-torn lands. After 11 grueling days on the road, Joan and her escort finally arrived at the imposing castle of Chinon, where Charles held his court, surrounded by nobles and advisors. To test her, Charles disguised himself among his courtiers, hiding in plain sight to see if Joan could truly recognize him. Without hesitation, Joan walked straight through the crowded hall and knelt before the true king, astonishing everyone present with her certainty. She spoke with unwavering conviction, declaring her divine mission to save France from its enemies and restore Charles to his rightful throne. The court was stunned. Her confidence and faith were undeniable, and even the most skeptical nobles found themselves questioning their doubts. This extraordinary moment marked the beginning of Joan's influence at the highest level of French power, changing the course of history. Through her faith, courage, and determination, Joan had opened the doors of power that had always been closed to someone of her humble origins. She was no longer just a village girl from Domremy. She had become a symbol of hope and inspiration for an entire nation. Joan was now a force the French could not ignore, a leader who inspired soldiers and peasants alike to rally behind her cause. The path to victory had begun, and the spirit of France was rekindled by her courage. With Joan at the front, leading the way, the destiny of a nation was about to change forever. Before trusting Joan, Charles sent her to Poitiers for examination by church officials. She answered their questions with honesty and wit, passing every test. With church approval, Charles gave her armor, a banner, and a place with the army. Orléans was under siege. Its fall would be disastrous for France. Joan's arrival transformed the army's morale. Hope returned. She urged bold attacks, writing letters to the English demanding their withdrawal. The French, inspired by her faith, launched assaults on the English forts. Joan was wounded in battle but returned, rallying her troops to victory. In just 9 days the siege was broken, the English retreated. News of the miracle spread. Joan became a national hero, the Maid of Orleans. She achieved what seasoned generals could not. France had its first major victory in years. For Joan, this was only the beginning. Her next mission, the king's coronation. The legend of Joan was growing. She had changed the course of the war, and her journey was far from over. The maid's destiny awaited. After Orléans, Joan's reputation soared. Her next goal, Charles's coronation at Reims, deep in enemy territory. Advisors urged caution, but Joan insisted on marching immediately. Her confidence and recent victories convinced Charles to act. The army advanced, towns opening their gates without resistance. Joan's presence inspired the people. She was seen as a living saint. The march became a triumphant procession. On July 17, 1429, Charles was crowned in Reims Cathedral. Joan stood beside him, banner in hand, her promise fulfilled. The peasant girl had delivered her king to the throne. France's destiny was changed forever. For Joan, her mission seemed complete, but her growing power made her a target. Enemies plotted her downfall. The next chapter would test her more than any battle. After the coronation, politics shifted. Charles's court grew cautious, and Joan's influence waned. An attack on Paris failed. Joan was wounded and sidelined. In 1430, while defending Compiègne, she was captured by Burgundian forces. The French hero was now a prisoner, abandoned by the king she had crowned. The Burgundians sold her to the English, who saw her as a witch and a threat. Joan was taken to Rouen, imprisoned, and denied a fair trial. Her captors sought to destroy her reputation and the legitimacy of Charles's reign. The trial was set, its outcome predetermined. Joan, once a symbol of hope, now faced her greatest ordeal. Her enemies would stop at nothing to break her. The Maid of Orléans was alone. Joan's trial began in 1431. A 19-year-old girl against a court of hostile theologians. She had no legal counsel. The trial was a political show. The judges tried to trap her with complex questions about her faith and visions. Joan's answers were simple, clever, and unwavering. They accused her of heresy and of wearing men's clothes. For Joan, it was about safety. For her accusers, it was proof of rebellion. Under threat and exhaustion, she signed a confession renouncing her voices. Her sentence was commuted, but soon she recanted, claiming her voices had returned. This sealed her fate. She was declared a relapsed heretic. Mercy was denied. The verdict was death. On May 30, 1431, Joan was burned at the stake in Rouen marketplace. She was 19, condemned as a heretic. As flames rose, she clung to a cross, calling out to Jesus. The English hoped her death would erase her influence. Instead, it made her a legend. Witnesses saw not a witch, but a saint. Her courage inspired France to continue the fight, leading to eventual victory. Years later, a new trial declared her innocent, a martyr, not a heretic. Joan's story grew, becoming a symbol of faith, courage, and national pride. In 1920, the church canonized her as Saint Joan of Arc. The peasant girl who heard voices became an icon for the ages. Her legacy endures, inspiring millions. Joan's journey proves the power of conviction. Her story is a reminder. One person's courage can change the world, and her legend lives on.